Tug lightly on this bowl of mine. Well, my screen has seen some better times. Well, my buddy poked a hole, now my weed falls deep inside. Please tug lightly on this bowl of mine.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
What's the matter with that cat there?
Must be full of reefer.
Full of reefer?
Yeah, man.
You mean that cat's high?
Sailing.
Sailing?
Lightly.
Hello and welcome
We
to
now
the
wander
Reefer
off the
Report.
beaten
It's
path
April
with an
22nd,
update from the Reefer
2019,
Reporter.
and we are live here at 420radio.ca. I'm Al Graham, and News Hawk Kim Cooper joins me here at the Legacy420.com news desk as we bring you our Canadian and international Reefer Report. Hello, Kim. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good today, Al. How are you doing?
Oh, not too bad. I think I ate something over the weekend that just isn't quite settling right with me.
Well, let's get through today's report because there's a lot of news on the horizon. That's for sure. It's been a busy week.
For sure. No doubt about that. We're going to start off first with some news on the weekend's 420 events, aren't we?
Yeah, lots of 420 events happening across the globe, of course, with this year's 420 festivals falling on a weekend and a long weekend, no less.
That's right. Sure was. It sure was. Now, the one we're going to touch on mainly here is the one that happened out in Vancouver. I see they had the estimate crowd over 60,000 people were there.
Yeah, 60,000 people flooded onto the grounds of Vancouver's Sunset Beach. That's a huge number for the Vancouver 420. Of course, they had a headline band this year that attracted huge crowds, and there was a lot of controversy over this year's event.
Oh, yeah, they've been fighting on and off trying to get permits for it, and accusations been thrown left and right, and it's a protest.
Yeah.
They seem to be being held to a different standard than other protests that occur.
Absolutely, they are. Huge double standard happening here. The opponents of the 420 event say that it's grown and amassed to a size where they should have to abide by the same rules as other festivals have to use when they happen in Vancouver city limits. Getting your permit and paying for police forces and ambulances and garbage and cleanup and so forth. The list goes on. So a lot of people are saying, why aren't they held to that kind of standard? Well, organizers, including Dana Larson, have come out and said, great, give us a permit. Here's our money. Take our money. We want a permit. Well, the answer to that question is simple. You can't have one. Well, then how can they play by the rules?
Well, it says that the organizers, they pay tens of thousands of dollars every year to cover the cost of everything from policing, including sanitation, park maintenance, and private security.
That's right.
But yet they,
They're doing it. They're doing it themselves.
They were going at the organizers about the grounds and the grass and stuff like that. And then I seen this year, like as soon as the event was over, the next morning, the people were posting pictures and making sure that these things got out, and we're seeing that how the lawn was still intact and everything was good and cleaned up. They had a crew that stayed overnight and cleaned everything.
Yep, everything has been cleaned up. I mean, the city, when you pay for a permit, the city encompasses the fee in that permit for policing, for garbage cleanup, sanitation, ambulance services, paramedic services, all of that kind of stuff. The team here in Vancouver is simply spectacular. They covered all those bases themselves. All
Yep.
those things were taken care of. They had the sanitation, as you said. The cleanup crew was there all night cleaning up. They've got photographs of the grounds taken. Grass is fine. It was in far better shape than when you see pictures after the fireworks festival that's put on by the city.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. And of note, it says here they had 400 vendors on site.
Yeah, 400.
400
vendors.
400 vendors, that's right.
It was a 50% increase in the turnout.
Yeah, that's right. And the police say there was no major incidents. Officers assisted the health services there on 14 medical emergencies, and traffic enforcement issued 30 tickets. But, yeah, as I say, the police themselves say no major.
Tickets. 30 traffic tickets. That's what we got.
Yeah, and then, there's that concern of the impaired driving end of things. And there was some people charged. 3.
Yeah, 3. How many people leave the fireworks competition where there's a booze tent? How many people leave there impaired?
Geez, they have booze tents all over the town. Beer tents. Even the small towns, where I live, they've got beer tents going on.
Yeah, there was more charges and more police interference with the general public at the Timmins Music Festival last summer than there was at the Vancouver 420.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, they say here, according to one of the city councilors, Melissa Genova, she said that the problem isn't the cannabis. The problem is that you're not allowed to smoke in the city parks.
Well,
so you get events that get exemptions
that's
to
right.
be held in things like this, in those situations. So yet again, why not an exemption?
Yeah, I mean, it's proven now. The park is fine. The cleanup went well. There's no damage to the park. There was no damage to the city. Police forces were not needed. Ambulance services were not needed. 30 people got tickets from police services for driving infractions under the driving code. Just give these people a permit.
Yeah. Well, according to this counselor, she is going to table a motion directing staff to review options for legal action against not only the 420 organizers to recoup the cost, but also the companies, the contractors, and other groups who participated in the unpermitted event.
What cost? If everything is cleaned up and there is no damage and no services were required, what's the cost did they incur?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now I've looked for some information on the Toronto 420 that was held at Woodbine this year.
Yeah.
New location, and I went to the Facebook page and I didn't see anything posted there.
Yeah, it's been scarce. I've had a difficult time finding anything out about it. Being the first time it's being held at the new location, it'd be great to find out more. So hopefully we'll be able to gather some more information over the next few days and get back to people on next week's show.
Yeah,
the Toronto show.
The only thing I saw was that there was thousands of people there, but there was nothing. Yeah, there was no big information on it. So.
Yeah. So if you know about the 420 events, give us a shout. And if you know of a news article, send it to us, and we'll definitely put it in the lineup for next week.
That's right. We're talking about 420s. How did yours go?
Great. Second annual 420 Timmins went off perfectly. We had spectacular weather. We got up to 17 degrees. It was a glorious day. Yes, it was fantastic.
Did you get flooded out?
Yeah, a little bit of water. Not in the main event area, and the tent area was dry, but in some areas around the tent area, it was having a hard time keeping up with the flow. So there was a bit of pooling a little bit, but it didn't really interfere too much. People were fine with it. We were walking over the puddles. We put a few tarps down and stuff. So, it was good. It went off just fantastic. We had our vendors there this year, which is the first time we ever did that. Vendors were very, very happy. They made their day's goal within the first hour of opening, so the rest was gravy for them. They were quite happy with the day's event. 420 Smokeout, lots of people there. We gave out 420 joints for the day's event. Yeah, great. Lots of giftware was given away, thousands of dollars in prizes, and we had over 250 people walk through the gate.
Nice. Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
You know, there you go, into a small city, I guess, right?
Yeah, small city, very small.
In the north, right?
And in the north. Yeah. We had people come from all over. A couple of people from North Bay, Sudbury, Temiskaming Shores area, Smooth Rock Falls, Kapuskasing. So far and wide, they emerged onto Timmins.
Good. And you said no problems from the local authorities?
No, we didn't see them at all. They did a couple of drive-bys where they kind of drove by the park real slow and had a look in, and didn't even enter the parking lot, though. So that was good.
Good. And no bylaw problems?
No bylaw enforcement, no municipality officials whatsoever. We did invite the mayor, but he didn't come.
I see here in the news article with you in the picture here with the Timmins Today. Off to the side, there's a sign that says Bigfoot area. What the hell's going on up there? Bigfoot area. Stay on marked trails. Must be a promotion.
It is.
Something else.
It was a promotion for something else, for another little event that was going on in town as well.
All righty. Okay. So, yeah, overall, we haven't heard any super negative bad news about anything happening at the 420 event. So,
no. And
we'll follow up next week.
Yeah, and we too stayed at our event afterwards. We had our cleanup team. Place was cleaner than it was when we got there. I mean, it was snow covered when we got there. We cleaned the snow and we cleaned the garbage before we left, and it was in immaculate condition when we left.
So it was snow covered when you got there, but it ended up with a high of 17. Nice.
Yeah, well, we went the week before and we shoveled the main area. Week before we had a shoveling crew, and we had to shovel out the main area, so it was all nice and dry when we got there.
Yeah. Good. All righty. Let's move on to our next story. We're talking about that during the 420 stuff about people and driving and things like that. And we see our next story is about that. And that's the fact that the use of the roadside saliva test for cannabis impairment remains in question.
Yeah. Medical cannabis users are paying the price for legality once again, for legalization once again. I mean, people use this as a medicine. We build a tolerance. Consumption does not equal impairment. It just simply doesn't. And until they have a conclusive test that shows that you are physically impaired, patients will continue to pay the price, just like Michelle Gray. She's been a medical cannabis patient for almost 8 years for treatment of multiple sclerosis. She was pulled over on a roadside test, and it tested positive.
Yes, that's right. And, we're hearing all this talk about how this is going to be, used as a way for people for them to prove impairment. And you and I and others have been saying, no, it just shows ways of, it only shows the fact of consumption.
That's right.
And that's exactly what the company themselves says, according to a spokesman there. And they said the saliva test was never designed to test for impairment. They said that our device is there to just identify whether there's a presence of THC. It's not meant to measure impairment, and we never claim that it does.
Yeah, and so then why are government and employment forces across the country using this test to fire people and take your license away?
Well, as your example, Michelle Gray, in her case, I believe she got her money back from her payment of her car, but I believe the charges are still remaining.
That's right. She had loss of wages because she couldn't go to work for 2 days because they had her vehicle. How's she supposed to get there? Nobody's covering any of these. She has to hire a lawyer, seek legal advice. Who compensates her for that?
Yeah, exactly. Nobody. They end up being stuck with the bill.
That's right. There's lots of stigma, trauma, and financial
see.
hardships
Yeah.
involved in these kind of things.
Well, Justice Department spokesman Angela Savard says that if a driver fails the roadside test, the result can be used in developing reasonable grounds to believe that a drug-impaired driving offense has occurred.
So, I mean, right there, you're saying, okay, the whole foundation for your investigation to build the reasonable grounds, as they say in the legal world, isn't that sort of like fruit from the poisonous tree? If your foundation isn't solid and it's only proving consumption, not impairment, well, then how can you build a case on that?
Yeah, exactly. And as this article is saying, there's police departments still refusing to use this device. For the most part, most part in British Columbia, police departments have not deployed it. Several departments have a Drager 5000 that can be used and test, but
they're not putting it out.
They're weary about using it. Exactly.
Yeah. But yet here in Ontario, several of our OPP stations have it in use.
Yeah, because a breathalyzer will give you that reading, and science says this is when people are impaired. But this machine just shows, the THC is present. It doesn't show
all it
else.
shows. That's all it shows.
That's right.
The science has a long way to go, and companies and jurisdictions that are relying on this tech is just. I mean, legalization came to unclog the courts with cannabis. All this is doing is clogging it further.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, this hasn't made everybody happy. Mother Against Drunk Drivers, they want the machine used more often and the technology to be improved. But
that bothers me so much. That really disturbs me because, I mean, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, Mad Canada. I mean, I applaud their goal and what they're doing and what they stand for. But just because that's your goal, you can't grab hold of technology that doesn't work to try and obtain your goal just to make you feel better like you're doing something.
Correct.
That doesn't work either.
No.
So it's misguided for sure.
Oh, yes, that's right, for sure. No doubt about that. All righty. Where do we go next?
I think we're going to talk about some patented cannabinoids.
That's right. A Canadian cannabis company files a patent, get this, folks, to print. That's right. Print with the inkjet printer cannabinoids and terpenes.
Yeah, printed cannabis. So you put in your little piece of paper and your inkjet printer, and you hit print, and inside is an ink-like substance that is actually a cannabinoid and terpene profile that's being created by Canopy Growth. They've patented this technology so you can print out your edibles, pop a piece of paper in your mouth and have a chew.
Sounds like acid blotters.
Doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah, it
now
does.
they say they can do this to control dosing and make it more specific and stuff like that. They see it as a benefit, but I can understand where there's people who don't smoke or maybe don't eat cannabis. That there are people who want alternative ways, but I don't know. I don't think if anybody had ever thought about this type of technology coming along.
Okay, and I'm sorry, but I completely disagree with this technology. Cannabis is a plant. It's a natural plant. Cannabinoid therapy can be used for a wide variety of ailments in your treatment regime, but only the natural ones. Any kind of preparation that they've whipped up and can relate to an ink substance to be used for printing, this is a chemical thing. So they're recreating the chemical profiles of the cannabis plant with non-organic substances. Like this is a chemical profile. This isn't plant medicine. This isn't going to help anybody. It's not real medicine. You might as well just go back on the pills.
Well, yeah, because they even say that right here that they are really novel chemical compositions.
Yeah. So it's recreated medicine that they've taken the profile and they're recreating it chemically. This isn't cannabis therapy. This is a reproduction of that.
Oh yeah. And what are they going to do? Sell printers so people can print these things off at home? Not likely.
Canopy growth. But I mean, it shows you the line of thinking from this corporation.
Oh yeah.
It shows you direction.
We all heard about pills and things to put on the tongue and stuff like that, but I don't. Yeah, printing out cannabinoids is a little bit different.
Cannabinoids. Yeah, okay.
Like, I thought it was an April Fool's joke. I went looking for it.
Yeah. Only from Canopy Growth, right?
Yeah. Okay, let's do our last story before break.
Sounds good. From corporate cannabis to Northern Ontario cannabis. We've talked about this company a couple of times on the show. We're going to talk a little bit about 48 North. 48 North purchased a grow op here in my neck of the woods, right in the town that I'm currently living with in Kirkland Lake, Ontario. Kirkland Lake was home to Delshin Pharmaceuticals. They were growing cannabis just up the road from where I live, actually. And it was recently purchased by 48 North, and they're in the news lately talking about how the industry is doing out here.
Mm-hmm. They say here that most people just call it a pot plant. I guess that's what it is, eh? You're building?
yeah, that's about what it is. There's only 35 people currently employed at Delshin, and they promised a lot more jobs than that at the onset, that's for sure.
So so now what they've gone and done is they've purchased a tree nursery?
Yeah, well, it was originally a tree nursery where they set up, and then they converted it from trees to cannabis about 6 years ago. When 48 North purchased them, just prior to Delshin's gone through several changes. It started off as an independent through Delshin Therapeutics. Then they partnered with the Indigenous territories out here, and they made a deal with them, and so it's 50-50 Indigenous now. And then it got sold out to a parent company under 48 North. So it's been undergoing quite a few changes and evolving over the last 6 years. And the press release recently talks about having a deal with the province of Ontario to start supplying cannabis to the OCS as well.
Yeah, I was just seeing that on there. That's what they want to be able to do. And I also see that they went up north to where you are to grow cannabis up there because of the cooler climate. It makes it easier to regulate the temperature.
Yeah, in the summertime we don't get as hot, and in the wintertime the hot lights are way easier to keep control of the temperatures because it's so cold.
Yeah. So just 35 people. They used to have 100 people working there as a tree plant.
Yeah.
So
it's downsized now. It's 35 people are working there as full-time employees. When they first opened as Delshin, they did a conference out here for the community and said, come on in and we're going to talk to you. And I attended that. They had made a lot of promises for a lot of jobs. Then they partnered with the Indigenous community up here a few years later. They did the same thing with the Native people. And they said, we're going to employ your people. It'll be good for both of us, this and that and the other thing. Out of the 35 people employed there, I think it's like 1 or 2% are actually Indigenous. And about 5% of the employees are actually Kirkland Lake Native residents or local residents. The rest of the people that are employed by the company have all been imported from other regions.
That's not good.
Yeah.
No. All right, Kim, medication time.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, as we do that, our listeners will hear a bit of a Fox News report on how cannabis is going to be a big issue for the 2020 election down there in the U.S., and you'll know when we're coming back when you hear about Sweet Marijuana Brown. You're listening to the Reefer Reporters. We are live here at 420radio.ca.
Hey, this is Cheech.
And this is Chong.
And you're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
What is it?
Lifestyle Radio. Say it one more time.
420 radio?
Ooh.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
I think medical is going to lead the way. I think recreational in states where it's legal, or states that have already done it, it's going to happen. But I think you're going to see largely medical at the federal level. And I think what you're going to see is a bill that I helped work on with Senator Gardner's staff is the States Act, which is moving through the House right now. The States Act actually does exactly what harkens back to one of the foundational principles of states' rights. Yeah. Meaning, if you want medical in Florida, have medical in Florida. If you want medical and recreational in California, have that in California. But if you don't want it at all in Alabama, or if you don't want it at all in Nebraska, then you don't have to have it. And I think that's a responsible way of addressing this as we continue to move down the road. But a once and for all recreational happening in the next 5 years, I don't see that happening. Yeah. But I see a thriving medical market, and I see a thriving CBD market, the likes of which I don't think the world is even necessarily ready for. Because when you're talking about CBD products being sold in national drugstores.
Yeah, like CVS, which is doing that, and Walgreens.
Yeah, so if you want the younger vote as well in 2020, Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z, they're all on board with legalizing marijuana. In fact, a Quinnipiac poll says that 93% of Americans, whether you're a baby boomer, younger generation, if it's prescribed by a doctor, they want medical marijuana, CBD, legalized. So that's, there is definitely, I would say there's tailwinds helping that cause.
Well, look at Senate President Mitch McConnell just wrote an op-ed in a Kentucky paper saying that one of his #1 legislative priorities was the passage of the Farm Bill, which included hemp and CBD. That's a big moment when you talk about the Senate President of the United States saying, and he actually appointed himself to the conference committee to make sure that it got through. That's a big deal, and I think that just shows, but you got to look at, when I'm looking at investing, you got to look at who can scale up. Look what happened in Canada. Everyone scaled up. They had about a 10-year head start, millions of square feet of cultivation. They went recreational. They were out of product in week 1.
But not everyone's allowed to invest in marijuana. Like, for instance, we have state funds, pension funds, Fidelity and Vanguards. They're very clean, proper, and they probably wouldn't want to touch sin stocks, which is what marijuana is considered.
Now, until we get the Safe Banking Act across the line, the biggest issue is right now, without the Safe Banking Act, if a bank takes cannabis money, and you write a check, they have to file. If I had to pay an electrician to work on a grow facility, they have to file a suspicious activity report every single time.
I was going to ask you, absent this national legislation, is that a real big impediment because of the banking issue?
It's absolutely huge. I mean, imagine running payroll when you're in a cash business. And if you look at it from a perspective of a governmental standpoint, you talk to folks at Treasury, they want to bank it because now they can figure out how big the market actually is and then ultimately look and see if they can put a federal tax on it. Right. You have to look at it from law.
Hey, are you looking for cannabis news, education, and people's opinions? Are you looking to learn what Canadian and international cannabis advocates are doing? Do you want to learn how patients are using cannabis as a daily medication, or learn how their cannabis use helps them with their medical condition? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then I'm going to suggest to you to tune in to 420radio.ca on the Lifestyle Radio Network. Catch their live weekly shows and have all your questions and concerns answered and find the experience you're looking for. Monday, catch our weekly news broadcast with the Reefer Reporters. Then on Wednesday, get several hours of cannabis public education when we get things started with cannabis and coffee to marijuana. Then tune in and catch the Higher Estate with Dr. Ira Price and finish up your evening with the award-winning Pace Radio Show with myself, Al Graham, and my rotating joint host. No week would be complete without tuning into Friday night's program, the 420 Radio Show, featuring Al Rapp and his 420 radio crew. Cannabis is a lifestyle, and you catch all your cannabis lifestyle information right here on 420radio.ca. Tune in to DJ Passion from the land of guns at the island of Jamaica when he comes to you live every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, only here at 420radio.ca.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
Hey, we're back from our medication session. That means it's time for Northern Ontario, Kim Cooper, and myself, Al Graham, to get right back at it. Right, Kim?
Sounds good to me. We're going to start off once again back up in Northern Ontario and talk a little bit about Thunder Bay.
Yes, what's going on here? Ex-Thunder Bay mayor faced an extortion charge involved in failed medical marijuana deal with the First Nations. What's, trying to get some money the wrong way or what?
Yeah, the deal was apparently turned down and it was missed by a narrow vote. Now there's talk that he had some interference in that.
Well, according to the draft financing offer letter, they say here that Thundergrow was requesting $2.6 million loan from the Fort Williams First Nations to purchase and renovate a building once used to make popsicle sticks. But, yeah, things went south, obviously.
Things went south. The First Nations people said, no, we're not going to get taken by you. And now there's big investigations are underway.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, this isn't good. If this fella here has got a track history of being, a little bit on the sly side.
It's not the first time this mayor has been investigated. The entire police force has been under investigation. The mayor's office has been under investigation. Council has been under investigation.
Really?
There was a complete turmoil up there that was taking place last year. Several people had charges pending. A bunch of them were dropped because of lack of evidence. But now there's this.
Yeah. So it's not all gone yet. And
it's
now
not all gone yet. And now it's falling into the cannabis community. The allegations persist over and over and over again with this whole regime up there in Thunder Bay. Looking like it's maybe time to clean house up there.
I'd say so. Shouldn't be taking people like that for their money.
Yeah.
All right. And talking about people and money, in our next story, we see there's 8 people who got a job that received 25,000 applicants. And one of them is from Edmonton.
Yeah, this is from a company called A Lot. It's a cannabis company, and they put out a press release. I covered this when it came out, and I put it up on some of my sites, on my pages online, and a lot of people had a lot of comments about it, but apparently a lot of people also applied.
Yeah, obviously 25,000 people. How many jobs get 25 applicants?
Yeah. 25,000 people were interested in these 8 spots that A Lot was advocating for. So you get to basically test their products. So they're going to send you free cannabis. You rate it, and you're good to go. That's your job. You're going to get paid to do that.
Yeah, well, the company was initially expecting 3,000 people, to apply for this thing.
Yeah.
And because there was such demand, they actually added 3 more jobs to it. So, yeah.
A lot of people are saying, free weed? You're going to pay me to smoke it? What's this you say?
Well, yes, they're going to pay them to smoke the samples, $50 an hour to evaluate several strains, earning them $1,000 a month during their year-long contract.
Yeah. I mean, for
$1,000 a month, $12,000.
That's a nice piece of change.
I could use it right now.
I'll take it. But of course, the samples that you are sampling is legally produced cannabis from an LP in Canada.
Yeah, some people have a concern with that.
That's right. There are concerns regarding the quality of said cannabis. But I mean, $1,000 a month, free cannabis. Yeah.
Yeah, you can share with a friend and have them smoke it. But yes.
So yeah, the very first person that is one of them anyway is very happy about getting appointed this position.
Yeah, yeah. And she says that she started to use it for anxiety reasons, and because of the benefit that she found, she wants to be able to help others.
Yeah.
And which is where a lot of us are when we started off on this. We see the benefit. We see, wow, holy smokes!
Yeah.
I got to tell everybody, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's the instinctual thing to do, right? Is
Yeah.
like, okay, this helped me so much, and it's blowing my mind because of how come everybody doesn't know about this? And it's an instinctual need to inform.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It is.
Yeah.
You want to share because you're always sharing the negative. You want to say, hey, they're lying to us.
Yeah, that's not right.
That's
I
not
just
right.
figured that out, and you need to look because I didn't know either, and that's how it goes, right? And
Yeah,
on it goes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
good for her. I'm glad she's happy with the position, and she's energized to spread the word.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. Okay, now talking about spreading the word, in our next story, we're spreading the word that, according to this article in CBC, they say don't expect your doctor to prescribe CBD products, according to the Physicians College.
Yeah, well, here we go again with the college. They went after the few doctors in the very beginning, Al. I mean, you were there,
Yeah.
16, 17 years ago, 15 years ago, when doctors were trying to write prescriptions, the very small handful of them they did, college went after them too, right?
That's right. Yes, they did, which wasn't good. And this is in Newfoundland and Labrador, but still, it's the same thing. Some doctors don't feel that they're qualified for it or haven't received any education, but there's other doctors out there like Dr. Ira Price who are going out there trying to educate doctors. So why don't these doctors reach out to people like him and others in order to get educated so that they can help these patients instead of just saying, well, I'm sorry, I'm not educated.
That's right. The education is available. If you can look at me and say, I'm sorry, I'm not educated, I can look right back at you and say, well, why aren't you? The education is available. May not have been handed to you and spoon-fed to you like the stuff that the pharmaceutical companies paid for to be spoon-fed to you while you were in medical college. But nonetheless, it is available if you go and look for it. So seek out guys like Dr. Ira Price. He does instructional videos. He does, has a website for doctors that, has dosing charts and everything else. He'll come to your clinic and he'll educate you one-on-one, a doctor on doctor, and familiarize you with cannabinoid therapy. He teaches at the universities and does seminars. Attend one. So, I mean, there's no reason for these doctors to say that they don't have the education. If they don't, it's because they haven't sought it out.
That's right. According to a Dr. Inkpen, okay, I'm not making that up, Inkpen, after our ink story, she says that the college's stance is the same as other colleges right across the country. We are cautioning patients and physicians who choose to either authorize use of these products or patients who choose to use them to be very, very cautious and careful until the evidence is in of what the short-term and long-term benefits might be of these products. Well,
the evidence is in. We've been using them for 1,000 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course, she goes on to say that there isn't enough information. Medical research takes time. Studies, go through lots of phases. So you're supposed to allow a child who's dealing with epilepsy to just have seizures galore while you wait for this when you can see the reports of other children benefiting from it?
Yeah, that's right. Because we have the research in places like Israel, Portugal, all over the UK. It's all over Europe. You look back in ancient texts and ancient journals from ancient China. It's there. The evidence is there. We can go back in Western medicine into the 1930s, 1940s, 1800s, where it talks about cannabinoid therapy being used in seizure disorders. Evidence is there. Clinical trials in today's standards may not exist, but that doesn't mean the evidence isn't there. The evidence is there. Clinical trials today, all that is money. The people that work the trial get paid. The people that fund the trial usually fund it because they're going to get a medicine out of the end of it that they can charge a lot of money for and make money on. You know, I mean, it's money all the way down the line. So what they're saying is, well, you haven't paid your dues yet. It hasn't cost enough money to get there, so we can't authorize it.
Well, according to the doctor, she says that she looked into it recently and found that there were more than 60 short-term and long-term research studies on CBD currently underway worldwide. And they're looking at 23 different diseases and conditions, and a third of those studies are based right here in Canada.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. So there is something being done, but these things don't happen overnight.
They don't happen overnight. And until they do, we have to rely on the anecdotal information that we have today and the history.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, this isn't a brand new medicine. It isn't a brand new plant. It isn't something that we discovered last week. It's been on the planet forever, and we've been using it for that long.
Mm-hmm. And she acknowledges that, you know, there is lots of anecdotal information out there, but of course, you know, it hasn't been proven anywhere yet. Yeah.
Money.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. She says medical research takes time. Yes, it does take time. Well, you know,
in the meantime,
we've been talking. We've got a medical program that's almost 20 years old here in Canada.
That's right.
How much time does it take?
That's right. Why weren't you doing it?
By now.
Why weren't you doing the research as soon as our medical program came into effect?
Yeah, that's right.
It'd be done by now.
And talking about medical. Our next story here. This is interesting. It is. I think it needs a bigger spotlight shone on it. And that is the fact that a Durham police officer intentionally misled bosses about his unlicensed medical or marijuana dispensary. That and the OPP has concluded that, and he never faced any discipline. Okay, we have people getting arrested. We have buildings being confiscated because of people selling cannabis. And this is a police officer, an OPP police officer who had an unlicensed medical dispensary.
Yeah,
and he's not even facing police action, never mind charges.
And he was a participant on the raids on other dispensaries.
Yeah. Like, how many police officers can buy a Lamborghini with cash?
Oh, and then he had it covered with his dispensary logo.
Yeah. 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 Well, the OPP said they've concluded that Constable Phil Egger intentionally misled the Durham police about his marijuana side gig, as they call it. The officer committed multiple counts of professional misconduct. Well, he also broke the law. Never mind police misconduct.
Professional misconduct. I mean, really? Because you're a cop, it's professional misconduct. But for anybody else, that's a jail sentence because you broke the law. The badge bought you a pass.
Yeah, Durham police would not say why it did not pursue disciplinary charges against him. The police service, which patrols the region east of Toronto and King, they wouldn't comment on it, and they called it a personal matter.
It's not a personal matter.
They
didn't press charges. Why didn't they? And it's not too late. It isn't past the statute of limitations. So why isn't something being done still?
Yeah, well, apparently, this is one of many cases that are before the Ontario Civilian Police Commission, which is reviewing complaints by several Durham police employees accusing senior command of corruption, abuse of power, and cover-up.
Yeah, isn't that the same entity that Ford wants to dismantle?
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. I think it is, but that's another show. But anyway, thought I'd throw that in there. But yeah, I mean, corruption at the highest level in Durham is what's being accused here, and I mean, people were outraged when this originally hit the paper, and this cop was driving around in this completely, covered cars. It was one of them. It wasn't even a paint job. It was one of them wraps where they wrapped the whole car and they cut the windows out, you know. So, I mean, the whole thing was done. How can a cop get away with this?
Well, he says here, they reached him by phone, according to the article, and he was surprised when told the OPP investigators concluded that he had committed deceit and discreditable conduct, and saying it was the first he had heard of it. So he goes on to say that then charge me. That's why we have a process. I've done absolutely nothing wrong. Deceit is a very powerful word. If somebody is going to make an allegation at that, then they better be able to prove it, because it's not something that I would take lying down.
So he's daring them.
He's daring them to, and he's saying that he never broke the law.
Well, maybe that's what he's going by, his superior's advice, perhaps. I have no idea. And if they're corrupt at the onset, then something's wrong here.
Has evidence been tampered with by now?
Yeah, it definitely needs further investigation, and other members need to be looked at. This entire force needs to be looked at for sure. Discrimination at the highest levels against cannabis industry, while one of its own is conducting the same business and getting away with it and getting a pass.
Yeah, well, the OPP repeatedly informed their deputy chief there about the misconduct, and this person is responding and saying that Durham police were going to ask for another external agency to investigate. So they didn't like the OPP.
They didn't like it.
Now let's
no,
get somebody
I don't like
else
the outcome. So let's get somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll agree with us, and we'll accept that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll just get a new outside entity until we get one that agrees with us.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see.
Good old Canada.
What's that?
Good old Canada.
Good old Canada. That's right.
Good old Canada.
Yeah, not good. Not
Corruption
good.
alive
No, this
as
is
well.
another one of those examples that you could point to and correlate and say, hey, how come
This guy's doing it.
How come this guy's doing it? He's getting away with it. He's being covered up, but his superiors are helping him out here. So.
Yeah, he got a badge. That's why he gets a pass.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, from good old Canada, we're gonna hit the road for a few minutes, I think, and we're gonna check out what's going on down in the good old U.S. of A.
That's right. Well, for our last story before we go to break, in this one, it turns out that the city of Los Angeles is suing unlicensed cannabis dispensaries for seeking millions of dollars.
Yeah, they're pushing back. The company called The Dispensary, the Kush Club 20, they were selling cannabis, they say, that was tainted. And they want them shut down, and they want to sue them.
Yes, exactly. They say that we apparently have a community care a lot about whether our romaine lettuce is contaminated, and we should. We care a lot about whether we can safely eat at a restaurant. So they said that marijuana buyers should at least exercise that same degree of caution. So in addition to shutting down this Kush 20 dispensary, the lawsuit seeks a civil penalty of $20,000 for each day that an illegal activity occurred at the property. And right now, after operating for about a year, the city is seeking up to $7.5 million.
Yeah. Now, it looks like they're going after just these two. Because of the tainted cannabis. And I mean, if they're selling tainted cannabis, then something needs to be done for sure. Is this overwhelmingly harsh? Maybe.
It's $7.5 million.
Yeah.
As we're seeing here in Canada,
what happens when they sell, Chipotle, like they were closed down the restaurant, right? Because of tainted food. What was their fine? It should be equivalent. It doesn't have to be off the charts.
Yeah, what was Organogram's fine?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it doesn't have to be off the charts to make it effective. it should be equivalent. You can't more harshly punish one industry than you do another for an infraction of an equivalent value.
Yeah. We're all saying let's be equal.
Yeah.
All right, Kim, it's break time. Another
Sounds
time
good
for
to me.
some more medication. Okay, Kim and I will be right back after a session while you listen to some more of that Fox News report and how cannabis is going to be big come the 2020 U.S. election. And you're going to hear some more of that sweet marijuana brown. You're listening to the Reefer Reporters. We are live here at 420radio.ca.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this lifestyle radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
April is National Cannabis Awareness Month. The cannabis business now is booming with the push for legalization growing in several states across the country. Joining us right now is Sol Global Investment CEO Brady Cobb. Brady, good to have you on the program. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
And you used to invest in retail, but you've switched the business focus to cannabis companies. Tell us how this started. Give us your playbook here, because you've got licenses across the world.
Yeah, so we identified that this market was coming. I mean, Representative Waters said in Congress the other day, the genie's out of the bottle. Congress has recognized that now. We saw that about 3.5, 4 years ago. So you look at a marketplace where people want the product. You look at states, and the United States started to get ticked off. California and Oregon and Washington, people weren't paying attention. You start getting states like Ohio, Florida, Michigan, states that matter in a White House election, states that matter in major congressional elections. The delegations of those states talk. Now the market started waking up and seeing it. So we identified this market's coming into the United States. It was already well established in Canada.
Yeah.
All the public money was going to Canada. I'm sure the folks on Wall Street would love to see those IPOs and all the cannabis companies trading in the U.S.
And Tilray was one of them, and it soared on day one.
It soared. It had a limited share count, and it was the first stock that was accessible to U.S. retail investors because it was on the NYSE. So that just showed you the demand was there. We saw that a couple of years ago and started making investments in the space. We started off in Latin America, which was a burgeoning market, had great exports to Canada because the cost of production was so much cheaper. We then pivoted into Florida, did the first license transfer in the state of Florida, which Florida is well renowned as one of the biggest markets in the U.S. Look at the population, 21 million people, great demographics. We then pivoted over to looking at bigger U.S. multi-state operators, recognizing that you couldn't just be in one state. So we invested in a company called Verano Holdings. If you saw last week or maybe about 2 weeks ago, Verano was acquired by Harvest and what is being called one of the largest cannabis deals at $850 million.
Wow.
The resulting company will be the largest multi-state operator in the U.S. So we identify talent, we identify management that have operations that can scale up.
So you invested in this industry ahead of any changes in Congress, because you see it state by state getting legalized. You're right now lobbying congressional people to make this recreational legal?
No, if recreational happens, great. We're a medically focused company. So I started in D.C. a couple of years ago, couldn't barely get a meeting, especially on the Republican side of things. I engaged the BGR group, Haley Barber's group. We went door to door, meeting to meeting, banging on doors, just trying to get in. And what's been amazing is to go back now, staff is educated, staff is asking questions because it's become too politically inopportune to oppose it. I honestly think this is going to be a big issue in 2020. I think that anybody running for re-election, look at Senator Cory Gardner. He's facing a very...
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyndonega. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
Catch Cannabis and Coffee to Marijuana live every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern, 10 Mountain Time, only here at 420radio.ca.
Do you want to hear what patients and cannabis advocates have to say? If so, then catch the Pace Radio Show Wednesday nights here on 420radio.ca.
Catch the Higher Estate with Dr. Ira Price every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as he aims to bridge the gap between medical and recreational cannabis through conversation and information. You catch that only here, 420radio.ca.
Boy, she's really frantic, the wildest chick in town. She blows her gauge, flies in a rage, sweet marijuana brown. In her victory garden, the seeds grow all around. She plants, you dig, she's flipped her wig, sweet marijuana.
Hey, we're back from our second medication session, and we are the Reefer Reporters. And if you're not sure, yes, we are live here at 420radio.ca. If you miss our live shows, don't forget you can always catch the podcast afterwards at our website and audio apps such as iTunes, iHeartRadio, as well as Spotify. Well, Kim, we got our last segment to go here. We got 5 more stories to cover, and they're all international stories. So let's start down in Alabama.
Yeah, good old US of A in the southern state of Alabama. Cannabis was on the table in the Senate committee, and they've unanimously approved a bill that will change the legislation down there regarding cannabis. But they've not legalized; they've decriminalized.
That's right. An 11-0 vote, the Senate Judiciary Committee, they advanced this legislation. And last year it was voted on, and it was a 6-4 vote. So the numbers obviously have changed.
Yeah.
And it says that the legislation would revise the penalties for possession of varying amounts of cannabis.
Now, before you start cheering,
yes, decrim. We should have decrimmed. We should have decrimmed, not legalized.
That's what a lot of people are saying that here in Canada. Oh, you should have went decrim. It would have been so much better. Well,
so what happens in Canada if you get caught with an ounce of cannabis?
Nothing. Absolutely.
Okay, what happens here in Alabama if you get caught with an ounce of cannabis?
You're fined $250 for the first 2 offenses. After that, it's a $500 fine for all subsequent offenses. Now, imagine you're not very particularly liked by the police department. Say somebody has a grudge against you that works for the police department and decides to pull you over at every opportunity they see you. Can you imagine the amount of money you're putting out at the end of a year?
$500 every time. And just out of curiosity, you went to your buddies, you picked up that quarter pound, and on the way home, you got busted with, you had dropped off 2 ounces, and you got 2 ounces on your possession.
Yeah.
What happens to you then if you get caught with 2 ounces?
10 years.
10 years. Hey.
10 years in jail with under decrim model in Alabama. So before you start cheering for Alabama, not so good. Maybe that's why it was an 11-0 vote. Alabama politicians are about to make a whole lot of money for the Alabama State Fine Commissioner. And, their jails will remain full.
Yeah, that's right. Well, they say that they can't continue to send people to prison for petty crimes that are definitely nonviolent. 10 years. It sounds like some time in jail. You get busted with more than 2 ounces of.
Yeah. They're still going to jail 10 years. So they're still continuing to send people to prison. Nothing's changed in Alabama. It's decrim model is not the way to go at all, for sure. And I think I might have lost my partner in crime. Mr. Graham is no longer on the air. Yeah, so I'm just going to keep going. The next story that we have comes to us out of New Mexico. They're also opting for the decrim model, opting into the similar situation as what we've got going in Alabama. And have you looked at the decrim model for New Mexico yet?
Yeah, I took a quick glance at it, and it's sort of the same thing where people, they're going to end up getting fined.
Yeah, same thing all over again. Maybe different levels of fine, different lengths of time because it is a different state. But nonetheless, it's the same model. And that's what decrim buys you. It's all well and good if you're in, the majority middle class or upper class white population. You're going to be left alone. You're fine. But if you're in any kind of a population that is being targeted by any of the police or police forces individually, you're going to find yourself in a lot of trouble.
That's right. Well, individuals caught in New Mexico, they, with less than half an ounce, will face a $50 fine instead of jail or prison time, which reduces that penalties. And it reduces penalties for drug paraphernalia, such as bongs, I assume. But as they say here, marijuana decriminalization is not the same as full legalization. Under decrim, criminal penalties linked to cannabis, such as jail time for minimal possession, is no longer a factor. However, several civil penalties, such as fine, remain in place. Selling cannabis remains against the law.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, you're seeing, financial loss. And if you pass a certain limit, then you're back to incarceration, is back on the table again. So decrim, for those of you that tout the decrim model, that's what they've got going on in Alabama. And I'm sure people that are, quote unquote targets of certain police officers or certain police forces aren't going to be liking this so much.
No, exactly. As it says here, some people favor decriminalization in lieu of legalization because it reduces the drain on law enforcement time, energy, and resources, whereas installing fines for cannabis possession generates income for the state's coffers.
That's right. And with, stuff like, 10 years still on the table, if you're past a certain amount or a certain limit on that scale, the jails remain full. So it's a win-win-win for the town, and people are still being persecuted, and the imbalance remains. So not a fan of decrim, not at all.
No, it has its issues, that's for sure. It's not the perfect way to go.
No,
and obviously, legalization here in Canada and other places isn't perfect either, and that's why we need to continue these 420 rallies and marches.
That's right. Pushing for a better system. It's not going to be truly free until it is truly free.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, yeah. So where are we going next? I think we're off to Alaska.
That's right, because up in Alaska, they're finding that cannabis is proving to be a very profitable crop.
Yeah, they're doing well up in Alaska. I mean, who'd have thunk it? Alaska and cannabis, right?
That's
right. We've got Alaska Thunderfuck, so I mean, that's always good. But Alaska, the home of the booming cannabis industry. 2 years since they opened their doors at 8K Frost, and they say they're booming.
Yeah. Sales are up 100% since they opened. They said the first week maybe they had 10 customers every hour. Now they have 50. Yeah.
They say 420, of course, was one of the busiest days of the year for shop. That was just this past weekend. And cannabis community seems to be very profitable crop in the state. And not just for that one shop. Revenue Department of Alaska's Revenue Department says they're over 1.5 mil so far in taxes from cannabis sales in February 2019.
Yeah, which is almost double what they pulled in last year.
Amazing.
That's right. And so far, the state's collected more than $12.3 million in taxes from cannabis sales.
Yeah. Alaska's doing great.
Yeah. No, they are looking at, I believe they're looking at making it so that customers can also consume their cannabis in the store. So that's sort of like a bit of a lounge situation.
Yeah. We did cover that a little while ago, a couple of weeks back, and that's the next step for them is safe consumption spaces right where you do your purchase. So there'll be a lounge space right off the store area, and you can go in and consume what you buy or bring in your own.
Yes, which is good. And we need those places.
Absolutely needed in Ontario and across Canada, especially with our climate. I mean, Alaska's thinking ahead. You're not outside consuming this and smoking this in our climate. And, we're not far off from that in the north for sure.
No. You still got snow up there. So.
That's right.
All righty. Now moving on to our next story. I see, we've touched on some of these East Asian countries on how, death penalties and how they're now looking at changing their laws when it comes to cannabis. I see here in Thailand, they had a festival on the cannabis.
Yeah, it was attended and held with Buddhist monks in attendance. Everybody from Southeast Asia was there. Legalization movement is getting large in that region, and they put on a festival showing the wares and the displays of cannabis and touting its medicinal value as well with their oils.
That's right. Well, one of the political parties there has endorsed the plant's benefits. And while the cannabis-themed conferences and panels have sprung up across Thailand with this 3-day festival there, just shows that things are changing.
They're most definitely changing around Asia, Southeast Asia in particular. But I mean, that's fantastic to see, considering what some of the penalties have been in the past for cannabis consumption or cannabis possession in some of these smaller countries.
Yeah, they talked with one monk there. He was 67 years old. He was one of thousands who showed up and stood in line to file documents with the Ministry of Health as part of an amnesty for those already using cannabis for pain relief.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there, just like here, even with the stringent laws, I mean, you could get your head cut off, you could get your hands cut off, you lose your life basically for consuming or distribution of cannabis or knowledge of cannabis distribution. So, I mean, they went underground, right?
Yeah.
They've been using it for centuries. Because the law changed there and prohibited it, they didn't stop. They just hid it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, now at this event, they have armed police that linger around the place while music goes, and vendors are selling rolling papers and pipes, and you can smell cannabis in the air.
Yeah, amazing.
We can't even smell the cannabis. We can't even smell cannabis in the air at our trade shows.
That's right. It's forbidden. So they're one step ahead of us already. Amazing to see this evolution happening across the globe, especially in places like Asia.
Yeah, exactly. Because they are very conservative.
Yeah, extremely.
I think it's the same thing. It doesn't matter what, it shouldn't really matter what political stripe you are. You're seeing benefit of cannabis in a patient, whether it's a family member or not, and in yourself, then maybe it's time to change the laws so that everybody can benefit from it.
That's right. That's right. I mean, these Buddhist monks, they live independently. They segregate themselves from the general population for the most part, and they're doing their thing, and they have been doing their thing for thousands of years. They're probably just relieved that they can tell other people publicly now.
Yeah. Well, they had an interview with Ryan Duran. He's an American cannabis expert who advises these farmers. And he says the stigma in cannabis is changing. He says, I never thought that I would be around so many Thai police and so much cannabis and not be in handcuffs.
Yeah. Thai cannabis farmers and police in the same location, and no paddy wagons and no cuffs. I mean, what is going on here, right?
It's changing times, man.
Yeah, and it's to be living history. It's an amazing time for sure.
Yeah, it sure is. There's no doubt about that. We're seeing it all over the world. Yeah. Now, earlier in the show, we talked about the saliva test and stuff like that when it comes to impairment. I see in Germany they're doing something here. Where drivers on cannabis will no longer be instantly losing their licenses.
That's right. Once again, here we are. Canada is the country that is supposed to be in the future of the developed world, Western world with legalization, the country to follow. Yet we have all these other places just surpassing us all over the place. Germany on the books saying, yeah, okay, we recognize that medical patients are going to come up with a positive test on our stuff, and we recognize that doesn't mean you're impaired. So we're not going to just take your license if you're a patient. We're going to give you a pass.
Yeah, federal court there ruled that the licensing authority must now first determine with a medical evaluation whether the cannabis user is fit to drive.
That's right. That's right. So your little test there isn't enough in Germany to lose your license and ruin your life. Yet we persist with that regulation right here in Canada, the ones that are leading the way.
Yeah, well, according to they actually tried, here in Canada, we have a 5 nanogram limit.
Yeah.
When it comes to THC in your blood.
Yeah.
They tried in Germany to increase the present levels to almost triple it. And that's because their legal limit is 1 nanogram of THC in the blood. And they tried to increase it to 3 nanograms, but the courts ruled that the limit should stay the same. So they're impaired after 1 nanogram?
Yeah, apparently. That's very, very, very low.
Very
but
low.
I mean, it's extremely good news for patients. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Because patients are going to be held to a different standard. You have to prove impairment, not consumption. And that's the key, right back to like the first or second story that we talked to today. We can't be doing this in Canada. It's not going to work. It's going to meet with more court challenges. And in the meantime, the loss of dollars, the loss of job production, the trauma that ensues for the patient that has to go through it. You're being victimized and demonized once again for your choice of medicine.
Yeah, exactly. And here's another country is actually maybe looking at changes because according to the head of the BDK organization, which is an association of German criminal officers, so police officers, said that their group was in favor of a complete decriminalization of the cannabis consumers. But he's not for changing anything to do with the driving.
Driving. Some countries are extremely strict with their driving regulations. Others are more lax. Others don't have any driving regulations at all around consumption, and you can just do whatever you want even without a license. So, I mean, we're all different in that aspect. I think Canada's right around the middle of the road somewhere. Germany is quite stringent. They don't want anybody with any kind of toxins in them driving on the roads at all. And that's fine. But I'm glad that they're excluding medical from that. That's very important.
Yeah. Okay, Kim. I think that's our report for the day.
Yeah, that's it for today from around the globe.
That's right. A lot of international stories in there. So it's good to see.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's our Reefer Report from the Legacy420.com news desk for April the 22nd, 2019. And in closing, we'd like to say thank you for listening to our Cannabis News broadcast. If you enjoyed it, please share it with your friends, relatives, as well as strangers. Until the next time, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
Bark at you later.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.